I decided to make a short video about my grandfather and the time I had with him because he has forever changed the way I view life and time. In life, there are things that are taken for granted, and sometimes we realize the importance and value of some things that have been wasted and once ignored. Right that moment, they are gone. Prepare your heart as you watch this inspirational video. I hope it would make an impact to you, and I hope my experience would touch your heart as well. You might not be able to relate to my experience, but everything that I will share in the next few minutes is based on what really happened and what shaped me to the person I am right now. I have heard many good things about my grandfather and how he disciplined his children. His mother and father had died early. Being the eldest, he told to bring up 13 younger brothers and sisters and help his family survive. I remembered as a very young girl, I would be running around my grandfather, not minding him as he sat on his wheelchair. All I said was, Ho Chaki, which means good morning, or Hoam, which means good evening. Every time I asked him a question, I always hated it because my grandfather would not answer me. He would only hold my hand tight. It seemed like he did not hear me. Angkong had a stroke for many years, but he managed to tell my grandmother how blessed he was with all his grandchildren playing with smiles in their faces while enjoying life. There was a time when the caregiver of my grandfather talked to him while patiently waiting for an answer. I was at the back of the door looking at my grandfather, also waiting and listening. Suddenly, after a long time of silence, my grandfather spoke a few words. That was the first and last time I heard him speak as far as I can remember. When occasions such as birthday parties, Christmas celebrations, and many more events came up, my grandmother and her friends would tell me stories about their past and how a great man, friend, husband, brother or cousin, uncle, master, and little boy my Angkong was. Sometimes, I wondered why people cared for him and how they showed it in their actions. For me, doing things for my grandfather was pretty useless because he can't respond, and you get nothing in return, not even a simple thank you. Every night, though, I heard my grandmother sing songs and lullaby to him as she sat beside his bed. I would just look at her, observe her slowly, and eventually saw how much she cared and loved him. I asked myself what my reaction would be if my grandfather passed away. I always imagined myself not feeling anything since I haven't shared any memories with him. I thought I wouldn't cry at all when that happened. I was very wrong. When my grandfather had high fever, doctors and nurses would go to our house. At that time, I wanted to visit my grandfather, but I could not often go close to him because they were trying to help him survive. This was a time I saw how people and how my family valued my Angkong so much. He was so important to them that everything turned blue and gloomy, and the home I call home lost its life and beautiful garden. Deep within me, I wanted to not feel what everyone felt, but that just made me feel more affected and affectionate about my grandfather. My grandmother was getting worried about my grandfather, I could see. I always wanted to see her smile, so I would do anything to make her laugh, even if it led me to some embarrassments. I was not that close to my grandfather, for I have always studied in Tacloban since first grade. It seemed like I have been away all my life, 2 days a weekend, would not really make me know my grandfather or make a difference in our relationship, even if I do all the things to get closer to him, I thought. One day, as I was watching the sunset from our backyard, a question came to my head. Why am I feeling sad? It seemed like I was not happy since my grandfather became sick. I was confused why I was sad. I asked God for help. God never told me, but He showed me as days passed. I had to do it myself. Go to my grandfather to spend time with him. I would talk to him even if he couldn't say anything or reply. Often, I wanted to stop talking to him and I wanted to give up. I said to myself, there is no way my grandfather would be close to me. But when I asked my grandmother why she talks to my grandfather, she said, even if your grandfather won't reply, inside his heart, he really wants to say something and that he understands us. From that moment on, there were slow changes in me. Like when I arrived in Catbalogan from Tacloban, I would always want to stay in my grandfather's room. I would tell him stories about what was going on and how fun it was in school. I would dance, sing him the songs I sang in school, talk to him, and tell him stories while I laugh at the silly things I experience. I would help his caretaker make food for him and watch as they stuffed the osterized food to the tube that passed through his nose, which was directly connected to his stomach. I learned to love my grandfather, and I knew that if my grandfather would pass away, it would leave a scar in my heart. I would regret passing by him and ignoring him as he watched us play each day. One Monday morning, at around 3 a.m., we were going to leave for Tacloban again. That was the last time I saw him alive. I said my last goodbye, and my grandfather even held my hand so tight, but this time, I wish he never let go. While we were on our way, I was bothered and couldn't sleep in the car, not knowing that my grandfather had already passed away. No one told my siblings and I until 3 days had passed. I was upset and frustrated. I wanted my own space. I just wanted to be left alone. I wanted to bring back time, and I regretted it a lot that I had not known my grandfather better before. This moved me for life, and it made me better realize that life is short and temporary. Don't waste time or wait for tomorrow to come when you have the chance to do what you can today. Love people instead of hating, and treasure your family and friends because no one knows anything about tomorrow. Now, all I have left of my uncle are warm and sweet memories of him in his last few days with us. I promised myself that I would not make the same mistake again. That's why, from that time on, my grandmother is not just my ama or granny, but became my best buddy and my very own best friend.